Do it.
Me?
Do it, baby.
Really?
Do it. Come on.
Dude, we're all looking at you. Welcome to another great episode of Get Spooled.
That's what I'm talking about.
Do the drag sound. Get Spooled Fishing. See that? I held the rod up. Dude, that was money. How you guys doing? We're coming at you live from our title sponsor, Tampa Fishing Outfitters. Captain James Beers in the house. Captain Shorty, Travis Yaeckel behind the mic. Disco Dannon back there, and we got Biodiesel Rick over here.
Biodiesel.
So, I mean, sometimes you just got to roll with it.
You got to roll with it.
Are we going to talk fishing today, or are we just going to talk about iCast?
Fishing.
All right.
I'm not going to make a diecast. I was trying to get passes, and then just charters popped up, and I want to go. If I was kind of wondering if I got a cancellation, but they don't have a pass.
Is it like Thursday through Sunday?
Yeah.
Wednesday, Thursday, Friday.
Are you staying?
No, I don't know. It depends on how the
next year
party after Thursday goes.
Yeah, it's going to go good. I can promise you.
So we'll see.
Yeah.
Costa Del Mar party. I know there's a bunch of parties there.
So next year we're all going to go as a team.
Yes.
We'll get a hotel.
Yeah, absolutely. You're going, Rick.
I've never been.
Oh, you're going.
It's cool.
You're going.
It's cool.
Never been.
You're getting a booth.
Yeah, you're getting a booth.
We're gonna get Rick a booth
but
there.
There is
iCast
coming up. That's actually a fun show. Just this year with charters and my daughter's volleyball, and I don't know. We wasn't very organized as far as us all getting together. We never sat down and went over it, so I think it just does what it always does. Yeah, and then charters came in life, and then here we are, and it's this week, and we're going, what are we doing? Are you going?
Mm-hmm.
But anyhow, we'll talk a little about iCast. James, you probably got a little more insight of what's popping in than we do.
Yeah, I can tell you there's a lot of big exciting things happening, the details of which I don't know a whole lot. I know Shimano's unveiling a new Shimano Stratic.
Yeah.
So that's a big deal. Bull Bay Rods has a new fleet of rods and various combinations that they don't currently offer. I can't confirm if we've already got those in the store or not. Actually, we do. So if you want to come and get it early before anybody else, all of Bull Bay's new lineup we've got. Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and confirm that since we've got them for sale on the rack. Yeah, they hooked us up, man. We're the store's one of their big, I think one of the biggest dealers going right now. So pride themselves on carrying every rod they offer. So
I'm actually mad at myself for not going to iCast the last 2 years. I enjoy going, and I was actually thinking we were going to sit down and get something laid out, and it's all of our fault or nobody's fault. I think we just got busy this year. This year has been hectic between me missing, you having your Georgia issues, and then just trying to do all these revamps with the show. And then I think as a whole, you and Travis are busier with your charter businesses, which is a great thing.
Yeah.
It's here, and if I have to cancel due to weather, I might jump in the truck with Travis and roll over. And Rick, I don't know if you cancel, we'll go over there too and do a last minute deal. But I don't know. I need to be there, but I feel like I need to be there. I really don't get a lot of new deals there for me. I think some of the problem with iCast now is there's a lot of
everybody's there to get something.
They are.
For nothing.
You know what I've always used it for is to go there and the current people, the companies that I deal with that I don't see every day.
Just kind of retouch base.
Yeah, say hi to them, and plus I enjoy going and seeing the new product.
Yeah. There's a lot. I mean, all the when you look at the major players in the industry, they've all got something big that they want to unveil. So,
buckets.
Don't
are great,
overrate buckets.
Out of all that big building,
Don't get
there's
me going
something
on
better.
Oh, there was stuff better than that. I'll agree with you that. But
That was like the product of the year. What was the award it won?
Yeah.
New product.
New product of the
really?
year.
A bucket.
A bucket.
Rick, really?
We already went
I
through
mean,
it. We've been
Rick,
endless
we could have
debate.
sat at your.
buckets.
You know
Yeah.
what we could have done at your house and got product of the year? We could have took that 8-gallon bucket that you can get from wherever it is.
Yeah.
And then we take some spray foam from Home Depot and we get the
So
5-gallon bucket and stick it inside of it and spray foam it, and we would have had product of the year.
Yeah.
It
Product of the
actually
year.
would have been taller. We could have put a rope handle on it, did some, kind of.
No.
Yeah. I mean, we could have. Son, what were we at?
Well, how was so? Hey, 4th of July.
It's good.
How was everyone's 4th of July?
I worked the entire week.
Yeah, I did not. I
know
went
you-
to.
new
Mark.
guys
Oh,
gotta
hey,
figure it
Mark.
out. I
How's
don't
it
know.
going, man? Yeah, I went out with Mark not long ago. Had a good time with him. Yeah, I went down to Sanibel in Caloosahatchee last week, and I could tell you I was a little nervous, kind of going down there with what happened last year with the water quality and being the Okeechobee, waterway there. Man, that place is beautiful, and it's as beautiful as ever right now. And there's a lot of fish. I've never fished in that particular area, and I had no trouble finding bait. Had no trouble finding fish. I think we were there for 4 days, and we might have spent a total of 4 hours fishing, but for those 4 hours, the rods were bent. It was cool. Caught some cobia. What was really fun down there was we got all those little. The first day I went out to fish, if I don't know an area very well, I just go to where I think the bait's going to be and figure the bait out first, then I'll figure out the fishing. And we didn't really have any desire to do any inshore, so we wanted to either tarpon or refish. And when I got down there and I started looking on my machine, there was all kinds of good public reefs within a few miles, and I thought that'd be the perfect thing to take the kids to go do. And lo and behold, start running the beach, and there's just these tiny, and I went with Kevin. Kevin joined us down there. There's these tiny greenbacks, like that perfect. Here, we'd eat them up for snapper. We would love it. And I took those out, and we started chumming on these reefs with it. And at first, we weren't getting snapper. The first, 3 or 4 fish we pulled up were Goliaths this big. So it was fun to catch those, and then it kind of transitioned where we got some snapper, then some cobia, then some sharks. But fishing was fun down there. The water was beautiful, though. I really want to stress that. I talked to the person in the house next to us who's a resident there, and they said it was really tough last year on them down there, and they just said it was really tough. He's been living there 30 years, and the first time ever he wanted to move. Where he said it was just that bad, and it made him sick, and he just couldn't deal with it. But, yeah, and I talked to another charter captain down there, and much better year. And he said that, they were really concerned about the fish population after all that went down, but said they're doing well. I could see it. In the canals we were in, when I was dumping bait at the end of the days, it was every cast. 15-inch mango. So we ate some good fish tacos.
Good.
Yeah, so it was a good time. Yep. But, let's see here. We got some comments here. That's where Scott was there, too. 2 young men I was hanging out with at a house called 38 and 41. Here's what I'll tell you is interesting, that you think we're in a populated boating area in Tampa. You don't know. I always thought Tampa, is always a crowded estuary. Dude, let me tell you, at the mouth of that Caloosahatchee, and I know it was a holiday weekend, but they have this area that you idle out from the mouth of the Caloosahatchee to kind of get into that Cape Coral Pass, and it's a mile no wake. Hundreds of boats at all times navigating through there. I mean, they're just, I never realized how expansive the residential area is inside the mouth of that, but definitely cool. Scott, man, I wish I would have seen you down there, buddy. We had a good time, but yeah, good food, good company, good drinks, good weather. Can't ask for more.
Yeah,
just pulled the last off my Kobe off the grill.
It looks like you guys had a good time. I had a good week of fishing. Well, it was kind of tough. It's been kind of a weird summer for me, Rick. I don't know how your summer's been. Yeah, that's different.
I did have some bolts Saturday on the boat, and it was great.
Yeah.
I had my one customer and he booked me 6 days straight, and he's a very avid fisherman. And 6 days we caught big snook, big redfish. We got a small cobia, we got tarpon, we got Goliath grouper, snapper. I mean, just about what you can do in the bay.
Mm-hmm.
I did have some tough days. We were starting. The tide was getting later. Like, we had a flat tide for like 3 hours at certain times. So I was starting at 9, 10 o'clock, getting bait, which is throwing the net and the heat.
That's tough.
And then we get the afternoon thunderstorms we're battling. But we had a good trip. We caught quality fish. There was days we only caught 10 fish, but we're 34-inch snook in the mix of that.
Yeah, you get a quality fish in there, and it kind of wipes out some of the.
So I really had to. It was 6 great days. He's a great guy, man. He been booking me for quite a few. Actually, Rick, the first time he ever booked me, you took him on the second day because I couldn't take him. Pedro, you probably remember. Yeah. And it's one of them customers, man, that you just end up kind of being friends, and it's just enjoyable. Yeah.
So were you I met him.
Yeah.
Well, out there on the marker.
Super nice guy.
So were you focused mostly on on flats?
We did bay fishing. So he actually brought his buddies in. It was a 60th, and he stayed in Ruskin. He likes Ruskin, and stayed right there on Blue Heron. It's close to my house. So I idle in, pick him up every day. It was a charter, but it was like it was almost like I was doing a lot of the work, but it was picking your buddies up. Right, 2 houses down from the guy that had the issue. Yeah. Yep. He got that not because it was super nice. It was the only thing that was there.
That's pretty good.
But
This here.
Beauregard said sharks ate his lunch all weekend, catching sharks, and Kevin said, "Tax man." He goes, "I paid tax on nothing."
I just seen the bottom part. I was like, but anyhow, it was a really fun 6 days. Very tiresome. I was really beat down about 4 days because when you're trying to catch quality stuff, it's a lot more work. And you know me, like, I'm constantly pushing the envelope with stuff. And we had a great 6 days of and the fishing for what I wanted to do with him kind of fell in place. We had some bay tarpon. We caught some big ones. We caught some small ones.
I saw those pictures.
We did a lot of stuff, man. We had some. I got a 41-inch snook. Yeah, so it was a really good trip. It was enjoyable. And then this week I'm doing some kids camp stuff mixed in. I got some tarpon stuff. But the fishing, I want to say it's been good, but it hasn't. We did real good on Sunday with redfish, slot under. We got like one after another real good. We got some snook. So the bite has been good, but not typical good. Like for me, going out in June and July and catching 20 small snook is usually not an issue. And it has been an issue.
It has been for me too. It has been for me too.
And I'm going to say that all the years that I've been guiding with Rick, we really hadn't had them issues, but there is a lot of extra pressure in our area from guides to rec guides. There's a lot of guides coming from Sarasota.
People
and
fishing.
Bradenton.
Just fishing.
Yeah.
A lot of fishing
But
pressure.
the guides are even not worse, but it's more because they're doing it every day.
Mm-hmm.
Like a rec guy comes out once a week or whatever, typically.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with it, but it's making it harder to
Right.
go out.
No
You
doubt.
got some clients that aren't real experienced, go out there and catch 20 snook, and they're
Ty's even saying
super
something.
happy.
Stuff.
Yeah.
That's with the kids, and we did okay.
Yeah.
Sit on grass patch.
It's a bent rod over everything.
Hey, I'm gonna tell you, this was after the show on that Monday. these kids get on the boat, and I'm like, all right, boys, what we got today? What do y'all want to do? We want to have a houndfish tournament.
Huh?
Houndfish.
Houndfish.
Yeah.
Caught one of them.
Smelly, right?
Yeah. And one of the kids brought a bunch of little gold hooks. We spent the day.
Rick, your mic's out, Bo.
So
You're out, dude. Rick's out.
Rick's out.
Well, he said that his audio.
Am I in? I'm in.
Yeah.
I'm in.
Oh,
I'm
that's
in the
just because
game.
you tapped in. Probably because you just tapped him
Tapped in.
out.
Tapped in.
That's Rick's special mic, too, so he can't blame anybody.
hello, I'm out, boys. All right, hey,
I guess the Mike did not like your comment.
just tell them I enjoyed it. I appreciate you guys.
Oh, man.
Tell them I had a houndfish tournament with the kids, and it was they have more fun.
He had a houndfish tournament. Everyone else is good. All right, we're good. Rick.
Tell them they had a houndfish tournament,
Hey.
and they had never had more fun on the boat than that. It was crazy.
Yeah, Rick.
There's
Sorry,
our tech
pal.
guy.
I mean, it is
Our
what it
tech
is,
guy
dude. You
slash
just- yeah.
host over there.
Oh, we got IT on it.
Yeah. Captain
Um,
IT.
Hey, to get back to a question I saw here a little bit from Ray.
There was one about bait.
Wellborn. Ray, you asked about the temperatures we're seeing.
90.
How, like, air temperatures? About 175 on a good day.
It feels like.
You know, if we get some rain.
It's been nice lately because we got a lot of rain lately. It's like today was. Well,
Yeah,
today
it's been
was
cooling
rainy.
off.
Yeah, the water temp was down to 85 today.
But the water temp I've seen has been as high as 92, 93, but generally starting in the mornings for the first couple hours, 84 to 87, depending on where you're fishing.
Yeah,
Mhm.
it was like 83, 84 with the rain that we've had. I marked 95 coming out of the marina.
Let me get a quick test in here.
95.1 is the hottest I've marked, which is crazy. But I will say this.
Test. Can you hear me now?
Oh, Rick, you're back in business,
Rick's
dude.
back. Batteries were dead.
Eric, how are we
Rest in
looking now,
peace,
buddy?
Rick.
Can you hear me now?
R.I.P. Rick's mic. Oh, man. Oh, Dustin Pack just joined.
But, I think there's been a big difference on fishing from a 90-degree water temperature
Thanks,
and an
Ty.
86,
Huh.
85.
Huh.
Big difference on the bite.
Uh-huh.
I think you get to that 90 point and you're just like you're over the edge. Where
That's it. Game
You
over.
start to notice it is when you start seeing those temps in the bay.
Yeah.
You know, like
Oh yeah.
when
When they're
you're doing-
pushing 89
when
in the
you're
middle of the
fishing
bay,
and you're 89, 90 degrees in the bay.
that's
You know,
cooking.
we had some folks on Saturday that we ran, and we kind of did, around the horn. So we did some bay fishing, we did some inshore. We wanted to just kind of get the Tour de Tampa kind of deal going
Mhm.
on. So we did bay fishing in the morning while the tide was slack, and I told him, I said, man, we really ought to, kind of pump the brakes and wait till that incoming tide comes in. To whatever coolness we're going to get is going to come then, even though it's in the middle of the day. That's when it's going to kind of cool off a little bit. So we ended up running inshore at like 1 o'clock, and water temperature was like 91 degrees.
Yeah.
And it was overcast. It wasn't even like really beaten down. We caught, I don't know, 5 or 6 snook and a redfish, and
Yep.
peace out. It just was tough.
I had ran across last week before we had all this rain some really good fish, and they just didn't want to eat on the flats. Like it was like they were there, but I tried everything, and it just like it wasn't happening. And we had moving water. It wasn't like I had waited for the tides to start. That was
Be
some of
right.
the problem too.
Mhm.
You had flat tide to like 10 o'clock, so you're trying to fish moving water, which is from like 10 to like 2, which
When it's
is
heating up.
like the hottest part of the day. But it's like, what do? Fish the flat tide? You kind of pick your poison the end of last week.
The other curveball that we've got that we hadn't had up until the last, I'd say, week or two is the rain. We're finally starting to see some good fresh water flowing in, especially up north and even its way in Cockroach,
Mhm.
Piney, all that.
Changing the
area
color of the water.
is really starting to get some fresh water intrusion down there. Not that, in my opinion, I don't think it affects the fish
I think it'll help it a
that
little bit.
much, especially the fish that reside in that area, i.e. the snook and the trout. I mean, the snook and the redfish. But what it does do is it definitely changes their habits. They're not quite as aggressive, or if they are, a lot of times, like right after that rain, what I've noticed, you get a high oxygen level, especially on a shallow flat, and those fish will come to life. But like early morning after a long rain all night, it's in my opinion not that good in the shallows.
I've
I'll
done
normally
pretty good on the flats, like in the backcountry. Done better in years past on like redfish and stuff when we had more rain, with like that dark tannic water.
wait. When some of the creeks start to fill up,
I think because they cool
you
down.
really start to get that. But what I've noticed, just in the last, I'd say, week and a half or so. Yeah, sorry guys, I don't have the
Just put it
I don't have
in
the
the
headset.
mouth.
You want me just to chew on?
Yeah.
But what I was gonna say was I've just noticed that when that rain first starts showing up, and we start getting these heavy rains, it seems like a lot of those fish just kind of chill out for a little while. It's almost like the salinity level kind of freaks them out for a little bit, and then they'll start to like fire off. That's like you said.
Well, let me ask you guys this. I got a question here, and I know the answer for me, but we've got this low pressure system spinning on us this week. What do you guys think about fishing with that? It's going to cool water temps. What do you think?
Definitely going to cool water temp. So,
Yes, and I mean today I had a great bite.
So I look at it. My approach with something like that's always been is what's making the like I always think about it. What's making the fish uncomfortable? So what's going to give them some reprieve, right? So in a situation like this, and it'd be the opposite in the winter. Like if it's in the winter and it's super cold and we get a warming trend, even with those funky pressures, sometimes the warming trend can just make them a little more comfortable and apt to do what we want them to do.
Well, I think today though was the pressure plus because it was overcast, and I don't know about inshore.
Mhm.
It may have been tough inshore, and it probably was. I was out in 8 to 12 foot of water all day, and those fish were comfortable. They were eating.
Yeah.
We had good current for the first part of the morning. It started to tail off there, right before noon, but those fish were wanting to eat.
Well, yeah, and so the same thing would go in the summer is when it's 90 degrees and it cools off to 84 or 85 for a few hours even, regardless of what the temperature or what the pressure's doing, I think it could turn them on. So I don't mind it. I like to get out around that time or right after a good rain, a good cool off, or
but
it's
the low-
overcast and windy, low
But
pressure.
to answer his question,
Yeah.
the low pressure kind of helps.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah.
I've had
definitely in shallow water. I
Yeah,
think you get a
low
difference
pressure.
between fishing in the bay versus fishing on the shallow flats.
I've got
Well, you're going
mixed
to feel it
reviews.
probably quicker, any change of that.
Fishing every day for me, and days like this, I'll have a really good day. You can tell the barometers
Mm-hmm.
bumping around. Really good day, and then the next day it ain't real good, and then it'll get good. It's kind of erratic.
Well, and some people say that, the barometer's kind of like the tide. If the barometer's moving, it's
Yeah.
good. It can be a low barometer and have low pressure, but if it's just setting low, I don't know. I've never
Yeah.
studied
I've
that.
heard the same thing.
I've never studied that really and paid close enough attention, but I know I'd much rather have low than high. I mean,
Mhm.
for sure.
I can
No
tell
doubt.
you, I've been out in a storm, and right when the storm is coming, the bite goes off, and then when the storm hits, you can tell the barometer's evened out, and the bite was just literally like shut down.
Yeah.
Like, you're like, okay, and it's that barometer's huge, man. I mean, I don't want to. It's not as big as the winter because the
Question.
fronts are stronger and they're more. The barometer changes more, but still, when these storm cells come through, they've got a barometer. They're going to change stuff, and it's going to either spark a bite or turn it off. But these low pressures are just kind of strange because they're just sitting on you, and you got this spinning system that's just doing like a repeat, like rewind every day.
Well, the good thing about the summer fronts, if you want to call them that, they don't seem to affect the fish as much because you don't get the temperature swings like you'll get in the
Right.
wintertime.
It's 20-degree temperature
Yeah.
change.
You get these big temperature swings in the wintertime, and those fish need a couple of days to adjust
They
to
get a
that.
lot-
You
Where
gotta
in
worry
the
about
summertime,
the pressure
it's a
and
lot-
the temperature.
Yeah.
The big thing that I've noticed, and I don't know if you guys have noticed it, I've pretty much fished every day. I had yesterday off. And today off, but up until then, the one thing that I've noticed, and we talked about it, we touched on it a few weeks ago, is the tides. These tides have been like so far off, it's not even.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
at
The
least an
turns
hour.
and
Like,
yeah.
I'm talking to the point where I'm like, do I wait this out or do I go do something different and come back? And do what
When you're
I'm
trying to
planning
get
on
thread fins with
Um,
customers, it can be quite
know,
the headache.
With
Yeah.
a lot of the bay fishing that I've been doing, a lot of it, certain areas are very dependent on the tide.
Yeah.
There's a certain tide that I want to be there, and there's a certain tide that's going to produce. And it's literally thrown my trips off by like an hour and a half. 2
Yeah, you
hours.
show up at the time you think you need to be there
Right.
to find it's exactly what you don't want it to be.
Yeah.
There was a point, I think it was Saturday morning. It was supposed to be a slow rolling incoming tide from like daylight till like 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon. The tide went out till almost 10:30 in the morning.
Yeah.
And I know because I was sitting in the channel, the main shipping channel. In the
Was that
bay.
Thursday, you said?
And it was that was Saturday.
Oh, I noticed
That
that.
was
I
Saturday.
noticed the same thing Wednesday.
That's what I'm saying. It's been.
I
an
showed
ongoing
up for
thing.
my slack when I wanted to fish it, and it was how I like to fish. It was unfishable
Yeah.
in the manner that I like to fish because the
Yeah.
tide was moving so hard, and it only picked up when it was supposed to be. So I was,
Ray, I don't catch too many flounder. If they do, they're by default.
yeah, flounder's a bycatch.
There's a good
Hey,
question
Jace
there by
asked a really
Jace,
good.
yeah.
Go ahead, Rick.
No, I was just going to say, and you guys can field this. What should I be looking for in a good spot on low tide? I got some good spots, but they only produce on high tide. Boy, that's a good question.
Go for it, Rick.
I would say don't go far.
What are you fishing for?
Well, that helps to know what you're fishing for.
Different species, if they're snook, they're definitely not going to go very far. You're going to want to look for the deepest water
Closest.
adjacent to, or a lot of times what you can do is, and this is something we'll use particularly for redfish, is watch the tide. And sometimes it'll take you 2 or 3 tide swings, but you get on a flat, and let's just say, what was it, a high tide spot?
He says high tide productive.
Okay, so it's
doesn't
very
know what to do
high
on
tide
low.
productive, and then once that tide starts moving out, the first thing that I would do is I would get on my spot when it's high tide, and I'd watch what the water starts doing when that tide starts flushing out. See where the bait go and watch the mullet. Those are going to tell you the pattern of most of the game fish and where the flush is coming off of that flat.
Mhm.
You're going to want to work that way.
Yeah.
Most of the time the fish are going to fall off in some direction of where that tide fell, whether it's a point, whether it's a trough,
Mhm.
an edge, a end of a sandbar, or a canal sometimes.
Right.
If you're fishing off the edge of a canal, sometimes a mangrove shoreline may hold the fish on high tide, but the second that the tide drops out, the fish are sitting in 10 foot on the edge of a
Hey,
canal.
Michael.
That happens a lot in residential area fishing, but that's what I would do. Is I would say follow the tide, follow the mullet, and inherently you should start running into those game fish.
If you can find some deep potholes
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
I'm a pothole fisher.
on
Yeah,
low water,
that's like
I'm
a
a
good-
pothole fisherman too.
Jace, I think it's really about understanding the areas you're talking about the best you can. And Travis, you led off with exactly what I want to say was the closest, deepest area
Right.
to it. And that just makes sense. So think about it from that perspective. If you're, hitting these fish up under a mangrove shoreline that's deep on high tide, find that same depth wherever it's going to be when it's 2 feet lower. And as long as it's close there, you should be able to find them. But,
Sorry, Steven.
yeah, you can't go wrong. Follow, like Travis said, if you should see a good current path when the tide really is moving. But yeah, those flounder and the bait are all going to seek the same water the game fish are going to. So if you can keep your eye on them, which it's easy with the mullet, you should be able to track them down.
We've caught some nice flounder, not targeting flounder
No.
at all.
Uh-uh.
And
Don't-
generally,
I'm getting
target
them mackerel
flounder.
fishing.
generally,
Right, that's what I said,
I
right.
would say generally you don't, or I particularly don't target a lot of flounder. And it's kind of a comical thing. I actually have it on my truck on the tailgate.
Yeah, flounder
I've
is like
had
a big
calls,
thing
I
on
know
your.
people are just messing with me because they'll call me up and ask me, we just want to catch a flounder, and I'm like, you saw me drive down the road or something, But anyway, that's a long story. But
We heard you were the flounder
yeah,
whiting guy.
There's a few spots, and there's a few weeks during the year that I can go target flounder.
Uh-huh.
Like there's a few sandy shoals that these fish will sit on, and if you hit it just right over a few weeks, you can catch a lot of flounder. But what I will say is a lot of the reefs, a lot of the rock piles, a lot of the deep water areas that we're catching snapper, mackerel, small groupers, they're going to have flounder around them. You're going to want to fish in the sandy areas around the structure.
Yeah.
And those flounder will lay up. What I will say is a lot of times if you catch a good flounder this time of year, if you catch, let's say a stud 18, 19, 20-inch flounder, don't move.
There's
odds
gonna be
are there's
all
gonna
laid-
2 or
yeah.
3 more right around where they're at. You might not catch 10, but the odds of that fish being alone are pretty slim because every time that we'll catch them deep like that, I'll catch 2 or 3,
Yep.
and it's normally like bang, bang, bang. So I don't know what the attraction is, what the tide is. I've never really tried to correlate it, but I can tell you that if you're snapper fishing with a small split shot and some small white baits or shrimp or whatever, and you're around that structure, you're probably going to snag a few nice flounders.
Do you
They're
guys
normally
feel
big.
like in the inshore, it's kind of the when I think about flounder fishing, I think about when I was growing up, was fishing the South Shore all the way down, to the bridge. And every day, I fished artificials, jig heads, paddle tails, jig heads, gulp when gulp came out, all the time getting picking up flounder on those flats. I'll tell you what, since I've become a guide, I've caught so many more flounder, refishing, macro fishing, doing other types of fishing, when I'd least expect to catch it, than I do on the flats. I mean, I could probably count the number of flounder I've caught on the flats in the last 3 years on one hand. But I've caught a lot of flounder.
I think they're out there breeding on that deeper water. So when you find, like Travis said, when you find one, you're going to probably find a bunch of them.
But it's just interesting to see how frequently I'd get them when I was, and that might be just changing the fishery, but
I think
15 years ago,
there's some
every day I'd go out and get a flounder, no problem.
Rick
on
will
the
tell
flats.
you this, from guiding when we started to now, there's some things that I don't understand, like what we used to catch and do to what we do now. Whether it's getting bait, there's some things that, like, we used to do this all the time, and we never do it now.
Completely different.
And I've actually spent the time sometimes, especially with getting bait, to go back to these spots, and it's just not there.
It's not there.
I don't understand. That kind of goes to your flounder story. It's like
No, but there's a flip side to that too, though. There's places that you can go now and get things that
you did.
you didn't then.
Yeah.
The bite always changes.
Like
in
flounder.
Flounder.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Well, the bite always, from year to year, we have an idea of what's going to happen, but that all changes due to red tide, to hurricanes, to storms, to freezes. There's so many different things that can change the pattern of these fish. So while logs help you and memory helps you on what and things like that help you a lot, it just gives you a ballpark of an idea of where to start. But the best thing I've ever done in 15 years of guiding, roll by the seat of my pants when I leave the rear in the morning. People call me like, you got this plan? I said, no, I kind of hit the tide chart when I.
It's funny you say that. Kirk, I talk to Kirk a lot.
Yeah, he's a planner.
He's a planner.
Boy.
And Kirk's like, well, what are you fishing for today? I said, I don't know. Well, why don't you know? Because I got to talk to him.
Yeah.
I don't know. I got to go see out there. I got to go see what the conditions are like.
See what it looks like. See what the tide's doing. See what the weather's doing.
Kirk is a planner, though.
He is, but the planning's great. But my thing with planning is you're going to set yourself up for failure a little bit.
Well, you can plan all day and get a charter. You can plan on fishing for a species all day long,
tarpon season,
and get your people on the boat, and they'll go like, well, I don't really care for dropping baits down for snapper.
Yeah.
I don't want to do that. I want to go throw under the mangroves. Yeah. Well, you know what? Right now the snapper mackerel bite's pretty hot. That's what I want to take people and do, because I know we can catch fish, and I know they'll have fish to eat. You go throwing under the bushes, you might catch 6 or 7 fish all day long, and you're going to work for all them. Yeah, you're going to work for them.
Yeah,
so,
no, but it's probably good for Kirk. But for us as charters, we have to look at things
different
at a totally
mindset.
Different spectrum, just because of
there's Kirk right there. Speaking of the devil, I talked to Kirk today. He said he did his first kind of targeting triple tail. He did good.
He probably talks to me and you on the phone and goes, "These guys are driving me nuts. They ain't got no kind of plan." Because he does. I can tell. Kurt's awesome. He'll call me. He's real specific. So what do you think about this? What are you going to do with this? I said, I don't know.
That's good advice, Danny.
And,
start your day with a plan and finish with your instinct.
Yeah.
Fish by instinct.
Exactly right. Capt Danny in the house.
Fish by instinct right there. Was that a plug?
Yeah, that's sort of how I roll. Like,
Danny,
all the time.
You know he's going to roll with
Yeah, but you can't always do that, because you can't take people fishing for something they don't want to fish for.
Well, I usually have that ironed out before they get on the boat.
I don't.
I just meant I fish by my instincts.
I get them in the morning.
For instance, you go out there and you say, we're going to go snapper fishing today, right? And everything looks good. The tide's right. It's going to be slack. The night before, the winds are down. I mean, everything is rolling right. And you roll out there, and you can't find the small bait. You got 8-inch green bait,
right.
And you got to go snapper fishing, and you didn't pick up any shrimp at the marina, so now you're kind of hosed. So you bust out and you cut a bunch of little ones up, or you do something, or you go to a different spot, or you try to go catch some other fish to cut up, and it's a constant battle to get to the end of the game. And the end of the game is like what you guys just said. It's all about your customers' expectations.
Getting off the boat happy.
There's several people that I take and have booked me to go snapper fishing, and 20 minutes into the trip, after they see 3 tarpon roll, they don't want nothing to do with snappers.
Yeah.
They want to catch tarpon.
Yep.
And now I'm loaded down with a live well full of
Snapper
1-inch snapper baits
Yep.
and 4.
You got to figure out how to catch
things
tarpon.
the size of my hand.
You got to
know?
upgrade that little bait to
So
a decent fish
you
to
start
make a
catching
tarpon bait.
pinfish, or you start catching some of those ladyfish.
Yeah, it's that's just part of guiding. You try to bring everything that you can and be as prepared. Tarpon's probably the worst because I'm kind of I like to, if I'm tarpon fishing, I want to do everything I can to have the right baits, and that can be very tough. Like I don't do it as much anymore, but when I used to go to the beach, I really wanted to have some crabs,
Yeah.
and I wanted to have live thread fins. I wanted a bunch of cut bait, and I wanted a few pinfish because there was nothing worse than rolling out there in the morning and they're flying them on crab and you ain't got
no
one in
crab.
the well, and I'm going. And you know that if you just throw anything with it's a crab in front of you, and the customers are going, well, they're over there hooking fish. And
I
you're like,
know.
we don't have any
Yeah.
crabs. So why don't we have crabs? I couldn't get them last night. So being prepared with bait. Oh, yeah. They hone in on one bait.
Whatever you
A
got.
little
But
bit more
tarpon,
room
they get
for it.
picky, man.
They eat for a reason.
Yeah.
They're eating for a reason. There's a reason why they're eating what they're eating.
Yeah,
That's
so
all you can say.
being prepared with bait and having a plan is good, but you don't want to be stuck on that plan. You got to get out there and be
Absolutely.
able to adjust to the conditions.
Well,
So I got a funny thing, because we're on this tarpon thing, and it just hit me, and I kind of told one of my customers the other day that we were gonna make an example out of him on
Me?
on the show. No, wasn't you?
I'm okay with that.
It was actually, we were tarpon fishing right next to each other a few days ago,
Yeah.
and the folks that I had on the boat, anytime we take a client tarpon fishing, the first thing most of us probably do is you sort of explain what you're going to do, what's going to happen when a tarpon bites.
Mhm.
You go through the spiel. Okay, you're not going to stop the
I
fish.
don't know.
Don't pull
I don't know what's
back.
wrong.
You're going through all these things in your head that you've seen anglers make mistakes on, so you try to prepare your guys the best that they can be in any situation. And bowing to the tarpon, right? Bowing to the tarpon. It's always the one that technically is probably the easiest, right? I mean, because you can show them this is all you have to do when the fish jumps. And so I had two brothers on the boat, from Boston or from Massachusetts. So they were just.
Was this that day that the two
That was
guys?
it was the same day, and so we had a lengthy fishing, interim where it was just slow for a long period.
It was
of time.
tarpon fishing.
Yeah. So, but then when the bite got hot, and so we hooked the tarpon, and all day we've been preaching this bow to the fish, and they were asking
They
questions and all
pulled
this,
back.
and so I'm gonna have to drop my mic here in a second. But I'm gonna grab a rod, and so the right way, and I'm gonna let you guys kind of do this.
You want to be the customer?
Yeah. So the right way is to bow to the tarpon. Yeah. First you flip the rod over,
Yeah.
but
You said be the customer.
you want to point the rod at the fish, and the idea here is that you're gonna give that fish 7, 8, whatever length the rod is
Yeah.
of slack to do his jump
son.
and kind of come tight. And the whole time, this customer, I was telling him how to bow and everything, and the fish, he hooks a fish. I mean, immediately, airborne, right? Well, I see him, and I didn't know what he did. I thought he fell out of the boat. So he bowed, and what he did was he went like this.
Oh God, no!
Like he was.
Oh, God.
Like he was bowing to Buddha.
Is this after I left?
He was paying respect.
So
to his,
he happened to get a fish.
Bow to the king.
Yeah, he did.
literally.
Pay my respects.
He happened to get a fish that was like 10. It was like a 10 or 12 jumper, right?
Yeah.
By the time this guy got done, he'd already done so many good mornings. He didn't have to go to the gym, but he was bowing the whole time, and we kept trying to tell him, point the rod. And at one point, his back hurt so bad from bowing, he couldn't stand up, and he was just reeling like this. He's just down there reeling.
My
And
God.
I'm like, stand up. He's like, you told me
This
to
is after I
bow.
left.
You told me to bow. Yeah.
Oh, I would
That's
have.
hilarious.
So,
I would've had to rag him on
he
that
ended up
one.
landing the fish, but if I'd have had a camera crew on the boat that day, there was some epic, funniest home
Let me
videos
ask-
going
Again,
on.
this is a little
Uh,
plug here. Bravo. I know the Housewives thing's popular, but you put some mics on our boat, son.
Oh,
so,
yeah.
So bowing to the king is not like getting on your knees bowing. It's pointing the rod tip.
Yeah.
Let me ask you guys a question. How many? I feel like more than ever this season, maybe it's the heat. I don't know. How many people on your boat have hooked a tarpon and finished it to the end by themselves this season?
I've had quite a bit.
Have you?
Oh yeah.
I've had
Yeah.
a couple.
Yeah.
Everyone is trying to pass the rod, and I'm
They're
like,
like,
no, I'm like, no, I'm not. And then physically, I'm
I'm
they
gonna
have
throw
to
a
pass it.
shameless rod plug in here. But I'm going to tell you one thing, and
Well, that's what we're all about.
yeah, I've fished with a lot of different tarpon rods, especially in the bay. You get a mix of fish. You could hook a fish that's 50, 60 pounds and turn right back around and hook one that's 250. I mean, like, I've never caught a 250, but our biggest fish about 230. But anyhow, my point is that same spot you're fishing, these post-spawn fish move in, and you can, they're from the one spectrum to the other.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And what I can tell you, though, is the average fish inside the bay is about 100 pounds.
Yep.
That's going to be your average size fish, plus or minus. And the fight time on a 100-pound fish, on the gear that I've been using over the last few years, is about 30 minutes. You know,
Yeah.
30, maybe 45 minutes, depending on the tide or whatever. We've been catching some 100 plus pound fish, and we've been whipping them in like 15 minutes on those bull bay rods.
Mhm.
And I attribute it to the rod because I've been using the same reels for a number of years now. And I just want to throw a shameless plug out there because I really have noticed a difference. It's not the angler because it's the same.
Yeah,
process
same,
goes
yeah.
across the board.
I'll agree.
But I've been using these a little bit stiffer, a little bit beefier rods. I also think that the foregrip up top
Helps.
has really enabled the angler to really stay on the fish a little bit better than your typical, through the reel seat, place. So I just want to throw that out there. If you are going to be tarpon fishing, get the right gear.
Yeah.
Right gear for the task.
Because every minute that fish is on the line, we were talking about land and tarpon. That's where it kind of came to. The longer you fight the fish, the more at risk you are of losing it. Period.
Yeah.
So
The problem, though, sometimes when you get that fish that's 150 and up, we had one we fought for 2 hours, and I kept tightening the drag.
And this is very dependent on.
tightening the drag. And it don't matter how much you tighten the drag, he kicks his tail and runs it out.
Some of them are going to fight to death.
Yeah.
There's just no doubt about it.
Another
They're
big
not-
variable here for me is the situations I've been in order to produce bites in some of the water that I've spent a lot of my time in, I can't fish 80-pound fluorocarb or
Also, you
leader.
gotta come back
Some
off the
coming on
drag.
50, 60, fishing lighter drag. So that's prolonging the
Depends
fight.
on the water
And then
clarity.
you get bigger fish in that scenario where you have 50-pound leader on. So there's a lot of variables. Now, granted, I've caught most of my fish this year out front from the Skyway out and had to use 50 or 60-pound test. I can't see what color that is. I don't know if that's going down.
Really?
James
Yeah.
is colorblind, bro.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Dude,
You know why he never runs
the
in
boat I'm
channel?
looking at, I've been looking at
Is
it
it
for a
white?
week. I had to ask him. I had to ask the guy today. I'm like, is it blue or white? And he's like, are you serious?
Oh, God, I would have messed with him at that point. Like, it's pink, but don't worry about it.
That's what I told him. Meet me
Well,
at
yeah.
the red can.
Yeah.
I'm looking over. I'm like,
Oh,
James,
my
bro.
God.
Oh,
Oh,
come on!
come
Don't
on.
act like I don't know the difference between the red and green
Hey,
cans.
dude.
That was the
This
thing
is-
when I got my
This is going to
captain's
be the
license.
ongoing deal here.
So when I got my captain's license, they give you this test.
The signs, he was done.
Yeah.
He's
Do
like,
you remember your test for colorblind?
Oh, yeah.
And it's
No,
like,
we went color.
so the physician gives me the thing to look into, and she's like, and there's a bunch of dots, and they're all different colors. And she's like, what number do you see in there? I'm like, good one. And she's like, well, I have to know what number. I'm like, there's no number in there.
What
It's
were you
dots.
colorblind at first?
No, I didn't know. I thought she was messing. We had a good rapport going on. I thought she was messing with me,
Good one.
having me looking at it, and I'm like, there's no number in there. And she's like,
Oh, my God.
you don't
Honey,
see a number? And I'm
honey,
like,
you're
no, I don't
colorblind.
see a number. And she says, you're serious? I'm like, yeah. And this was like the physician's assistant that I'm going through this. And she's like, here, try the next one. I'm like, there's no number in here. And she's like, it's between 2 and 9. I'm like, there's no
Got
number in there.
one. We got
There's
one.
no number in there. So I'm really getting messed with.
Woo,
So
son.
anyway, she pulled me. She goes and talks to the physician, and he comes in, and it's a big deal. And I'm thinking I'm not gonna be able to get a captain's license. Thank goodness he had a bag of paper clips there that are all different colors, and I was like, yeah, that one's blue, that one's red. I can tell you the difference. But those dot things, I couldn't see a lick. But I've never had any issue, a sign, anything that we need it for.
So
Yeah.
Dippin' Dots ain't really your thing when you
Dippin'
take the
Dots
kids
isn't
out.
my thing, no.
Just a bunch of gray dots out there.
Yeah. It's Liverpool can't catch him if you can't hook him.
Yep.
50-pound test. He's 50-pound every day.
Yeah,
Doesn't matter
but
where we go.
I'm 80 all day long
Yeah.
lately, man. I've been hooking them pretty good. I tell you what, the rod you were saying, I've been using the Tsunami 5,000 reels, and they've done well. If you want to test something out, you go tarpon fishing. Like if you tarpon season,
Oh, yeah.
fish for a season.
It'll
with
test
something.
your knot. It'll test your
It'll test
line. It'll
everything.
test everything.
And they've done well. They've got the drags have been super smooth. The biggest thing about the reel, my customer said something. I had one of my old reels on, and I had that, and the weight of the reel. was so much like night and day lighter. And he actually said, give me another rod. Because, holding that thing all day, because with tarpon, you're constantly typically holding the rod, makes a difference. So they've been great. I've liked them, the 5000s. I've had them.
Red right your turn. I got that
pound.
covered, man. I don't even need to see the color of it anymore.
Oh, my God. We're going to mess with
Well,
so
their
bad.
shapes, too.
The shapes, I know.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
that's what I'm saying.
Squares and
helps you out.
triangles.
That helps you out,
Red and
man.
green I can see, but if it's like maroon and black,
So it's like,
Good thing they didn't make it maroon and black.
Hey, man,
Yeah.
go to the triangle.
Eric.
12 triangle.
It's the new Tsunami. They're the Avix, not the Shields. The Shields are the old reels. I think they have in stock here, right?
I think, yeah, they do.
The Avic 5000s. I'm using them for inshore and that. They've been great. The drag system. I think I want to go on a limb. So they say they got 50 pounds of drag.
They got a lot of drag.
Something
They
crazy.
if they got 50, they got 30 more than you need.
Yeah. No. Well, I can tell you this: when you do fight a tarpon with them, you have to count the clicks because it goes
You can get heavy quick.
locked
Strong.
down. Like if you do a half a turn after they're set, you might as well hang it up.
I'll be honest with you, with some of those reels like that, like I've got slammers and spin fishers. They're both phenomenal reels. The slammers are in that same class where it's like 40 or 50 pounds, and the spin fishers like 25 and 30. I actually like the spin fishers because they're just easier to deal with. Like I do worry about that. Like when I tell the client, hey,
I count the clicks.
2 clicks or whatever, but when they've got a 150-pound tarpon on, it's screaming offline. You tell them to go
Yeah.
2 clicks. They're not cracking a safe.
I
up there.
usually say
I'm not
don't
cracking
touch
a
the
safe.
drag.
up
I'm
there.
like, let me do it.
Yeah.
But the biggest thing with them is the weight is they're super light. I mean, compared to because a lot of I know the Dial with Salt is a great reel. It's heavy, like it's a aluminum body reel, and they're super light, which is nice because the tarpon stuff is typically heavy, and if you're holding all day, your arm does get tired. So they've been great though. Been good reels. 60-pound braid with 80-pound leaders. What I've been using 6/0 hook, and put a split shot if you need it.
Yep, it's really a pain. Like when I was doing, I was running, going out. If you're like crossing the, if you're going out there to tarpon fish and then you come back in the same day and you gotta tie everything up again, But
well, I've went through my fair share of tying knots. We've been fishing some structure-oriented stuff, and boy, it's been
Between the structure and the sharks.
yeah, crazy.
Yeah, it's been nuts.
I can tell you what, man. When bay fishing first starts, you grab them first 5, 10, 20, 50, 100 sharks, right? You're kind of like, dude, bring a shark up, man. I'm like, it's like I'm grabbing, greenbacks off anymore, dude. I'll just grab a shark.
Yeah.
Like, you're not worried. I'm like,
I don't mess. I tell you, I got a D-hooker. I was
can't
telling
afford
James.
the hooks, man.
Listen.
Yeah, I got a D-hooker too, dude.
I got to show you this D-hooker I bought. And I don't even know if you sell Cuda products here?
Yeah, I think it's down there.
Dude, it's a long D-hooker with this thing you pull. It's freaking. I bought it, and I picked up. I was at Apollo Beach. I told the guy at West, this thing's expensive. If it don't work, I'm bringing it back because I was tired of going through hooks. Dude, it's a little hard. Once you get the hook, it's like a clamp, and you pull the trigger, and it literally pops the hook out, and it's like that long.
That's what I need.
Yeah, I went through like 50 hooks one day. I'm like, all right, guys, we're almost out of hooks because I don't try to keep like a ton because you end up getting them rusted and all that. So I keep a fair amount, but one day I was like, the sharks are just going nuts, and
they will eat you up.
Yeah. So, but that Cuda D hooker is really good with sharks and anything, even like stingrays and stuff. I've been using it. It's just easy to deal with.
Stingrays, I don't mind. I kind of like grabbing the stingrays. They're fun.
I don't like grabbing stingrays.
I get
that tail scares me.
Yeah.
I grab them up. I grab them up, dude. Flip them over. They spit all kinds of water.
I know a guy who had that same attitude.
Hi, mate.
Yeah.
Crikey.
I mean, how'd that work out?
I tell you what was the other one was the nurse sharks, man. And I put a little thing out there, and there was a one of the comments on my Instagram page. There was a group. It's like I tag fish or something like that. Trying to figure out because there's 3 spots that I've been fishing. That can consistently I'm pulling up these big nurse sharks off the bottom, and these aren't. And these are like 10 footers. They're not like little guys. And we pulled one up, not too long ago that had a tag in it. We were trying to figure out, what the tag was for, or if there was somebody that I could reach out to say, hey, I'll give you where I caught it, and estimated length and stuff like that. But we didn't notice the tag until it was kind of too late till we let the fish go. But anyway, there's a lot of that kind of stuff going on too, man. You just never know what you're going to catch in the bay this time of year. I've caught cobia off the bottom. We got, Goliath groupers, big gags. caught a 22-inch red grouper the other day.
Right.
So you just never really know.
Yeah, and one thing I'd like to throw out there, guys, about the show. So we try to share it to some groups and share it to people we think be interested. If you guys are part of a group that we don't share it to, and shoot us a link on the comments here, or share it to the group, so we can get if you think the show would be beneficial to that group. There's a lot of groups out there that we don't.
Yeah.
I don't get on groups besides doing the show a whole lot. So, but I think they're a great source of information.
Mm-hmm.
There's also some quite a bit of arguing that goes on them, but a lot of people use them for what they are. But if the show would be beneficial to any of the groups out there, feel free to share or let us know, and we'll add it to our list.
Yeah. Speaking of groups, I saw Kirk was on here. I got to do my own shameless plug because Wednesday night this week at O'Brien's in Brandon, so that's over on Kings and Lumsden pretty much. I'll be there doing a seminar, really talking bay fishing. I'm going to try and keep it relevant with what I'm doing the most of. So we're going to be talking, tarpon in the bay, snapper, grouper, mackerel, and stingrays. Hooking stingrays. So if you guys can make it out, that's O'Brien, 7 o'clock this Wednesday night.
That'll be a blast. I'm just in for the stingrays.
The stingray portion? Yeah. Maybe I'll have that D-hooker.
So
I'll bring that D-hooker.
I'm really interested.
But they got a mackerel tournament
Did you
coming
get
up.
that CUDA D-hooker?
Yeah.
Did you get one?
No, I don't. I have another one that works decent, and so I'm going to use that until it doesn't work, and then I'm going to upgrade to the CUDA.
Yeah, I've been impressed. Like, I was on the thing's like $40. I'm not gonna lie. I was like, if this thing don't work, I am bringing it back. I told the guy, but it is honestly worth every penny. It's pretty cool. But
it is. So up until
Rick's
a
got
few
one, it's like a
weeks
coat hanger or
ago,
something.
I never even
Welding
had
rod.
a D-hooker on the boat.
Oh God, I can't
Everything was
operate
by
without a
hand or
D-hooker.
pliers, and
Really?
now having a D-hooker, dude, that thing like stays
How
in
can
my
you not have
pocket,
a
dude.
D-hooker?
Pliers, you can go on the dash. D-hooker gets the front pocket now.
D-hooker. They need to do the ones like X Tools and Mustad. I think they've done away with all the D-hookers with the plastic handle.
Mhm.
I don't think anybody makes me one. I don't know why. I
I
got
think
an old
Berkeley
X
still
tool.
makes one.
They
Yeah.
the best D-hooker.
I think
is
Berkeley
just
does, yep.
A plain
And so does-
chain, 8 or 9, 10 inches long.
That's what I got.
One single
Yep.
hook.
Yeah, but
They
the
went to
handle.
that one that went kind of funny looking.
I like the S a little bit because
Nah,
sometimes
I
you
like
need to
the
push
S.
down
I'm
in
not
there.
big on the
I
S.
got an
Okay,
old X
give me the
Tools
S.
one, and if that thing went in the water, I might.
Dude,
dive in
whatever
and try
happened to
get
X
it.
Tools?
You
I
should
don't know.
be telling us.
I don't know.
I know.
I mean,
I got one of their D-hookers. I can promise you that's the last one with a plastic handle on it. Them T-handle ones hurt my hands when you're trying to get them out.
They
Yeah.
do, and they bend up.
Yeah.
They do bend on the bigger
They
fish,
did, yeah.
but they bend back.
The Ohiro one that I got actually isn't too bad. The one that's just one solid piece of metal welded with a little grip on it. That one's not too bad. I've used that one a few times.
Yeah, but they got to put the plastic.
Dude, I got
handle
one
on.
made. It's a welding rod I got from Jason Thompson.
Uh
And you know how a lot of times on them that you get the bend is only about that far.
huh.
So if you got a wiry fish, you go to grab it, you can flip off. Well, I bent it where it's about that far. Then I brought it up and bent the handle end of it. Just put a bunch of duct tape.
That's good. I did duct tape. I didn't think about that.
Dude, mine's
that-
homemade. It looks like something from the
Homemade.
backwoods.
It looks
But I'll
like a
take-
piece of trash on the boat. If you
I'll-
cleaned up Rick's boat,
You throw it away.
You throw it away. You wouldn't. You throw it away. But
Oh,
I'm telling you,
man,
I've
that
had
was- that
a month
was
or
low.
about a year and a half now.
If it ain't broke, don't fix it.
I'll take it over anyone on the market.
That's how it is, though.
But that
I
having
agree.
that handle.
It
or
sounds
tape
like we're all
helps your
believers
hand.
in
Yes,
current.
That thing will
absolutely.
beat your
Beat the
fingers
hooker.
up.
For sure.
I got baby hands, man.
Coat hanger works the best. That's what he's saying.
Coat
That's
hanger.
what he
No,
has.
it's not
Yeah,
a coat
until it
hanger.
rusts the next day.
It's a welding rod. It's
And
a
Rex
lot,
needs a new mind.
lot
Rex,
stronger.
Danny,
What?
come on.
Rex,
Rex, come on, Danny.
He
gotta
called
do
you
your
Rex.
Rex.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Come on, Danny.
Oh
Man. Old Danny's in the house.
What do we
get
got?
Danny back in.
Well, I
here.
got a brand new battery, so if it's
Yeah. And
it's,
that's your personal mic. Nobody uses that
yeah, I know.
Except for
when
us.
you're not here,
Except for us.
like last week.
for all of us.
Yeah,
Except
I
for
did
all
use
of
it,
us.
Rick.
I knew y'all were gonna screw it up.
Guys,
Oh
we got a
man.
few more minutes here.
Rex.
We've got our
we got
famous
We
two.
got any questions in there that we missed?
We're gonna be doing a prop show pretty soon.
Prop show's coming up. We're shooting our promo for that.
Yeah, we're gonna shoot the promo, and then we'll have an ICAST review. James, I guess we're gonna lean on you. I think you're going for one day.
I'm gonna go hang out with the Rodan boys for a day, and
I'm
swing
going.
by the
I'm
Bull
only
Bay-
going one day. I'm
Bull
going
Bay
Thursday.
Rods booth, and then We might go hang out at the Costa Party for a little bit. So
Oh yeah.
we got a little something put together. We got a little shindig put together. If you see us around, come say what's up.
Yeah,
Kenny
and
does
if I
have a
cancel my
hotel room.
trips, I might
Come on with it.
jump in.
Yeah.
What time? What's your ETA? You leaving early in the morning? Or you
Well,
staying?
I can't. That's G14 classified. If I said that on air,
Yeah, well, you're talking about all classified stuff
Bro,
on air.
we're still
I
live,
forgot,
bro.
Dude, you shared it to the Tampa Fishing Club. We can't be broadcasting the details of that trip to
Travis,
everybody.
bro, how many autographs would you have to sign?
Dude, I mean,
Greenback
I'm
locations.
gonna have now. I'm
How
gonna have
Shallow,
now I'm gonna have
deep,
to shave my
grassy,
face again.
sandy.
Imagine you got all
Mercury,
these people
Bridgie.
surrounding your truck and it won't crank either.
Well,
Yeah, we're-
greenback locations. Let's throw everybody a bone on greenbacks.
We have to find the tricycle bike guy.
We
Oh,
got
hey, I got my wallet.
greenback
I got one more.
locations.
That's going
in the
old
water.
school there.
Flats are deep right now. That's
depends
it.
It's gonna depend on what.
Flats are deep.
Both.
It's gonna depend on what you're gonna get. If I'm going tarpon fishing, I'm not looking for anything on the flats.
Yeah.
If I'm going snapper
no.
fishing, grouper fishing, then I'm going to the flats
Well,
and loading up on small bait.
Yeah.
Take
Small
what's
bait flats,
available. They're
better
small,
bait deep.
They're mixed, and the potholes with chum. It's a mixed bag. Take what's available. The small bait works, man. It's a little bit of a pain, but
It's growing up though.
When Danny
This
said
last week,
earlier,
a
when
lot of the
and it
mix-
grows quick. It grows like
you
a quarter
you
inch a
get
week,
nice little
probably.
mix.
that's
Danny
pretty-
said earlier,
That's pretty funny.
never needed a dehooker because he came unbuttoned. Those are the best. That's
Danny,
the
did
Palm
that
Beach
guy have
release.
the oxygen bottle?
But what Danny said earlier about being prepared, I can tell you right now, one thing is like when I've got trips, I don't know how they're going to go or the fishing's been a little unpredictable. One of the pains is the bait because the trips that are going to be hard, it's even harder to get bait because I'll run, hit the flats, get the small stuff, and then pop the marker on the way back to the ramp or the pickup location, and then hit the marker so I can get a bucket full of big threadies, and it's
Yeah.
just
I tell you, one of the hot items on my list has been, Eric Olson hit it on the head. Most people get mad and they leave and they throw them out or they don't take them. But I can promise you this: if you're gonna do any bait fishing in the next month, don't throw those pinfish away.
Mm.
Even them little small
especially
ones.
those ones like
Um,
that big.
If you got big snappers around or even groupers,
said yes.
they will hammer them. So keep a few of those in the tank for a rainy day, because I promise you, if you take the time to fire one down and you're on a good spot, you get bit.
Especially if the bite slows down, you've been fishing greenbacks.
There's a lot of people that say they don't do very well on pin fishing. One of the things that I'll say to them is you're probably fishing a spot that's not that good.
Mhm.
I know it sounds kind of crazy, but if there's bigger fish around,
Man, I ain't got
and
any good
it's-
spots.
It's a game on. A lot of times they'll eat a pinfish. Or another my point is that most people don't try it when it's
I know.
His point was, James, your spot
My spot
sucks.
sucks.
sucks, dude.
Sorry.
If you didn't catch
go
them on
eat.
pinfish, I mean,
Throw it
might as
out.
well
You know what? Let's
just
go
throw it
eat.
out, bro.
You know what? If you're calling my spots that bad, we're going to
And
eat.
James, while we're on that subject, why don't you give out your information for a charter?
Yeah, if you guys want to
If you need some
drop some
some
pinfish down in a
spots that
crappy
you
hole.
can't catch anything on pinfish, I can take you. 813-625-2067, localknowledgefishing.com.
And that's all we got to say about that.
That's
Let's
all we
go
got to
eat.
say
You wanna
about
fish
that.
with greenbacks, you can fish with Jason.
Yeah.
Little ones.
All right, guys.
All right, guys. We'll see you next
See you
week.
next week.
See ya.